In this video, I'm going to teach you absolutely everything you need to know about Amazon KDP ads as a beginner. So that ultimately by the end of this video, you can start using ads with confidence and start using them to make you more money on Amazon KDP. So Amazon KDP ads for beginners. Now this is going to be quite a long video, so I'm going to break down exactly what we're going to cover throughout the entirety of it. Firstly, I'll explain why you need to be using Amazon ads. We'll then move on to how Amazon ads actually work, explain things like the bidding system and just how the whole process comes to life. And then finally, I'll show you how to create and monitor your ads to make them as profitable and make you as much money as possible. Now, of course, there's quite a few layers within each of these, but this is generally the structure that we're going to follow throughout this video. So let's start with why we want to use Amazon ads in the first place. Now, the reason why you want to use Amazon ads in the first place is that they allow your books to be seen by more customers. The more eyes you get on your books, the more sales that you make. And they also allow you to place your book crucially in front of the right customers because they're going to be showing up against certain search terms and products, not just more people to see your books, but more of the right people. And they also allow you to crucially increase your organic sales too, because the more ranking your books get organically, the more sales you make. So as you sell more units through your ads, Amazon will recognize it's a good product and start pushing it more. Ultimately, Amazon just pushes the products that makes them the most money. So if you're using ads on your books and these ads are converting into sales, Amazon think, hey, this book's actually making some money, making us some sales. Let's push it higher in the algorithm and then hopefully even more people will buy it. So Amazon ads are more than just getting sales to ads. They also help you with your organic ranking too. Now here's a good visualization of exactly what I mean. Now don't get too carried away with the time frame and also the specific numbers. Just look at the general trend, and the general idea here is when you first launch an Amazon KDP book, just because it's just been launched, it's not going to rank very well organically because it's just been out. Amazon don't know whether or not to push it or not. So the vast majority of your sales when you first launch a book will come from ads. But as you start to continually use ads, Amazon realize that, okay, people are buying this book, and then they'll start pushing it a little bit more organically, and you'll start to make a few more organic sales. And then over time, even if the number of sales you get from your ads stays the same, you'll also be getting significantly more organic sales because Amazon would be pushing your book a lot more. Whereas if you didn't use Amazon ads when you first launch your book, it's very, very difficult to get this initial traction and to get these initial sales because ultimately no one can see your book in the first place. So that's why Amazon ads are really important, especially when you first launch your book. And ultimately, the more people that sell on Amazon, the harder it is to rank. As Amazon KDP has increased in competition as a business model, there are just more and more people that you're competing against. And that is why Amazon ads are so important, because they give you the opportunity to stand out from a lot of this competition. And the two main reasons why they're so important is firstly, the obvious one, they get you more sales. But secondly, they also improve your organic ranking, as I showed you in this slide here. And ultimately, these two things are a positive feedback loop. The more sales that you get, the more your ranking improves. The more your ranking improves, the more sales you get. So it's this constant feedback loop that's really, really beneficial once you get your Amazon ads right. So this is essentially why Amazon ads are so important and why I wanted to make this video, to make it as easy to understand so as many of you as possible can start using ads and start making more sales. And it's also just worth mentioning here, whenever I'm talking about Amazon ads or Amazon KDP ads, they're both exactly the same thing. Amazon ads is the platform. You're just using Amazon ads for your KDP book. So they are exactly the same things. Sometimes I might call it Amazon ads. Sometimes I might call it Amazon KDP ads. They just mean the same thing. Now, there are two main different types of Amazon ads. The first one is a keyword ad, and that basically means anytime someone searches something into Amazon, i.e. puts in a keyword like dinosaur coloring book for kids, your product can show up against that certain keyword. So you can basically have your book shown in front of people who type in a certain thing. And as you can see, that's exactly what this book is doing here because it comes up with that sponsored button, as you can see. And then the second type of ad you can use is a product ad. So basically what it means is you can advertise your book against other people's books. So if I just click into this book here, as you can see, this is the listing for that book. And underneath here, you can see other books that other people are advertising against. So this is sometimes good to use against other books that are similar to yours, but you think yours is better. So basically someone could land on this page and then they see your book below and think, actually, this book looks a lot better. I'll buy this one instead. So there's two main types of ads: keyword ads and also product ads. Now, whichever one you end up doing is dictated by whether or not you use an auto ad or you use a manual ad. And I'll explain what these two things are now. So auto ads, by the name, is quite straightforward. They are automatic. These are just ads that you will set up once and Amazon will automatically advertise your book against certain keywords. I'll put search terms here. Search terms just means the same thing as keywords. Against search terms or keywords, and also products based off your book's metadata. So essentially, auto ads mean Amazon do the targeting for you. So auto ads will use your book's metadata to decide where to advertise it. So it will look at the subtitle, the title, the categories you choose, the keyword boxes, the description of your book. It will look at all of these things and try and figure out what your book is and where it can place it. So for this example here, this is a dinosaur character coloring book. Amazon will read this and say, okay, this is a dinosaur coloring book. It has bold and easy designs and it's for adults and kids. So it might automatically think, okay, we'll show this book up anytime someone types in anything to do with dinosaur coloring book, whether that's for kids or for adults. It will also look at the description. So T-Rex, Velociraptor, Stegosaurus. So if someone types in T-Rex coloring book, it might also show up then. So basically this is how Amazon understand where to place your book in an auto ad. And then you also have manual ads. And these are ads where you can choose exactly what search terms or keywords and products you want to have your book shown against and exactly how much you're doing it for. And in this case, you're doing all the targeting yourself. So the big difference between auto ads and manual ads is you're both doing keyword targeting and product targeting. The difference is with auto ads, Amazon are choosing all of these targets for you, whereas in manual ads, you actually manually go in and choose specific search terms. So if this was a manual ad, you could tell Amazon, okay, I only want to be shown up anytime someone types in exactly dinosaur coloring book for kids. I don't want to be shown up anytime someone types in dinosaur book for girls or that kind of thing. You can be a lot more manual and a lot more selective. Hence the term manual versus automatic. Now, manual ads can go into a significant level of detail, and yes, you can use them as a beginner, but I recommend if you're brand new to Amazon KDP ads and you just want something that's not going to massively overwhelm you, just to focus on auto ads, because you can absolutely get incredible results just using these. And if you want to dive deeper into manual ads, you can do that at a later stage. So in this video, I'm going to be specifically focusing on auto ads, just so you don't get super overwhelmed with all of that information. So that's a quick explanation as to the different types of Amazon ads you can use and why they're so important to use them. We're now going to move on to how Amazon ads actually work. Now, Amazon ads are what we call PPC, which stands for pay per click. And this essentially means that you only pay once someone actually clicks into your ad. You're not paying when someone sees your book, you're paying when someone actually clicks into the ad. So if I go back to this example here, let me find it, this one here. I'm seeing this ad here, I'm seeing this book, but this person only actually pays once I click into that book and click into their book listing, as you can see here, hence the term pay per click. So don't worry, you're only spending money when someone actually clicks onto your ad, i.e. they have intent to actually buy it. It's not a case of you're paying for them just to see it. But having said that, what decides how much money you actually pay in the first place? Now, there are two variables that dictate how much you pay for your ads to be shown. Number one, something called the default bid, and number two, the bidding strategy. Now I'm going to work through both of these in more detail individually, starting with the default bid. Now the default bid, as you can see here, it will look something like this when you set up your Amazon KDP ad. Your default bid is simply just how much you are prepared for someone to see and ideally, hopefully click into your ad. So in this example here, as you can see, my default bid is 20p, which basically means I'm telling Amazon, okay, I'm prepared to pay up to 20p for someone to see and click into my ad. And the problem is, of course, there are so many people advertising on Amazon KDP. So how do Amazon decide that I'm going to get that ad space versus someone else who might have a different default bid? So essentially how this whole bidding system works is you set a bid, then if that bid is higher than your competitors' bids, then you will win that advertising space. Now here's an example of exactly what I mean. Let's just pretend that this is our book and we had an auto ad, and our auto ad wanted to place our book against the search term dinosaur coloring book for kids. If you have two different people, I'm person A and somebody else is person B. My default bid is 40p and their default bid is 30p. So generally, who is going to win this advertising space? Well, the person who bidded more. So I'm going to win the advertising space on this certain occasion. So the higher that you bid, the more times that your ad will be shown and hopefully the more clicks that you'll get. But what it will mean is that you will pay more per click. So in this example here, person A is probably going to get more clicks on their ad, but person B is going to spend less per click. Now you might be thinking, okay, if person A has a higher bid than person B, then how is person B ever going to win the auction because their bid is just lower than person A? But you also have to remember how many searches get put into Amazon every single day. There are literally millions of searches every single day. So all of these mini auctions are constantly taking place. Person A might have a budget that they've used up for the day, which basically means then person B can then get the next advertising space. So don't worry, it's not all about whoever has the highest bid is going to dominate and take everyone's auctions. If you have a lower bid, you can still win auctions. auctions because there's just so many different variables at play. But you have to remember, the lower your bid is, yes, the less you'll pay per click, but you're probably going to get a lot less clicks, all about finding this balance. So with all this in mind, you're probably thinking, okay, Sam, well, how much should I actually bid on my ads? And now as a beginner, I suggest choosing your bid based on your break-even point. You have to firstly figure out how many royalties you get from each book and then set your bid accordingly. So let's just say, for example, you make £2 per sale. This is not your book being sold for £2. So let's say your book was sold for £7 or whatever, but the royalty you made per book sale was £2. So therefore, every single sale you make, you personally get £2 back. If this is the case, then you only have 10 clicks on a 20p bid until it becomes quote unquote unprofitable. So in this example here, if you got £2 per book sale and you put your default bid as 20p, as long as you make one sale in every 10 clicks, you will be making money on that ad because 10 clicks times by 20p is £2. So it's all about finding this balance between, having a high enough bid that you're actually going to get seen and you're going to get clicks, but also not having too high a bid that you're just going to spend loads and loads of money. So you're probably watching this and thinking, okay, well, the cheaper the bid I have, the better I'm going to be, because ultimately if I'm paying less per click, I can get so many more clicks and then hopefully more of those people will actually buy my product. But you have to understand, as I kind of mentioned a second ago, bidding less means that you will win a lot less auctions and therefore your ad won't be seen many times, if at all. If you have a default bid of something like 5 pence, yes, your cost per click is going to be extremely low. You're going to get so many more chances before your ad becomes unprofitable. But let's be honest, the chances are you're literally never going to win a single auction because there are so many other people who are bidding more than you, because that is just such a low bid, having a low bid of something like 5p. And this is why it is so important to understand the metrics in the advertising console. You've probably seen these advertising console screenshots, or you've been in your own advertising console itself. There's so much data in there. It's extremely confusing. It's extremely overwhelming. But if you know how to analyze that data, you can see exactly if your bid is cheap enough, if it's too expensive, if it's too cheap, and find the optimum bid for you based on all of these metrics and all of this data. And later on in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. But before we do that, I'm going to take you back to this slide where I said there are two variables that dictate how much you pay for your ads to be shown: the default bid, which I've just covered, and also the bidding strategy, which we'll move on to now. So the bidding strategy. The bidding strategy simply explains how your default bid behaves. Now, if you're a beginner, I recommend sticking to the down-only bidding option, as this basically means you'll never pay more than your default bid. So if you go actually set up an Amazon KDP ad, you'll select your default bid, and then you'll have this screen here. I'm going to show you exactly how this works and walk you through setting up an ad campaign in just a second, but this is basically how it will look. You can choose either dynamic bids down only, which basically means it will take your default bid and only bid that amount or less. You can have dynamic bids up and down, which basically means it will increase your default bid by a maximum of 100% in real time when your ad is more likely to convert into a sale. So it just gives it a little bit more flexibility. Or you can choose fixed bids, where you set a default bid of 20p and you bid that every single time, no less and no more. Now, the two most common bidding strategies you will see are dynamic bids down only and dynamic bids up and down. So I'm going to give you a bit more of a visual representation of exactly what this means. Now, these slides were actually taken from my KDP Ads Mastery course for all of those people who really want to take their ads to the next level. So if you want to check that out, I will leave that course linked down below in the description, and it will essentially teach you everything you need to know about advertising your KDP books on Amazon, and crucially prevent you from wasting loads of money on ads without knowing what you're doing, and hopefully make you a lot more sales too. But in this slide, I essentially compare the difference between a down only bid and an up and down bid. So let's just say you had a default bid on your ad of 50p. If you chose the dynamic bids down only strategy, this basically means that your default bid is 50p, your ad is only going to spend 50p or less. So anywhere between 0 and 50p is how much you're going to pay for your ad. So sometimes it might be cheaper, there might be less competition for your certain book or the certain target, in which case Amazon will be like, okay, we can win this for less than 50p. It might be something like 25p. So your bid is always going to be somewhere between 0 and 50p, because it basically says, here's your default bid, only bid that or lower. On the flip side, you then have dynamic bids up and down, which basically means here's your default bid of 50p. If we think it's more likely to convert into a sale, then we are prepared to spend at least up to 100% above your default bid. So if your default bid is 50p, we're basically saying we are okay to bid up to £1 if Amazon thinks it's more likely to convert into a sale. But equally, if it's less likely to convert into a sale or there's less competition, it could go even lower than 50p. So your range becomes 0 to £1. So that's basically how these two different bidding strategies kind of interact with each other. So that's everything you need to know about the bidding strategy and how Amazon ads actually work and where you're actually spending your money. I'm now going to show you exactly how you can create your first ad and start advertising your book on KDP. So what you want to do is head over to advertising.amazon.com and you have to create an Amazon ads account. Very, very straightforward to do. And then you have to select the country that you're advertising in. So I'm personally from the UK, so it will by default select United Kingdom, but even if you're living in the UK, you can advertise in every single one of these territories. So I might create some ads in the UK, I might create some ads in the US, I might create some ads in Australia. And I'll leave a link on screen now to a video where I show exactly how to do that in more detail. So once you've finished watching this, you can go ahead and watch that video and see exactly what I mean. But for this example, we're just gonna go ahead and stick to United Kingdom. So just gonna go ahead and press sign in. And then it will take you to advertising console where you can see all of your campaigns. This is currently set to a random day in April, but you can change this to loads of different date periods and you'll see a big graph showing you exactly how all of your ads are performing over time. As you can see from this specific day, I spent £14 on these ads with just under £90 worth of sales. So really, really profitable day in terms of ads. And then also you can go up here and select the different countries that you want to advertise in. So if I wanted to look at my campaigns that's specifically for the US market, you'd go up and click United States here, and the same for all of these different territories. But to go in and actually start creating your first campaign, just go over to this create a campaign button. And then you have the options of sponsored products or sponsored brands. This might look a little bit different depending on your location and also where you're advertising in. The one we want for this example is sponsored products. So go ahead and just click into that. And then you have a couple of things that you need to do. Now, the first thing is your ad group name. I always just leave this exactly as it is. And then you want to go ahead and choose the product you specifically want to advertise. Now I have blurred these out because I don't want to give away, the books that I'm selling, because people unfortunately will just go ahead and copy them, which is a bit of a shame. But then once you've selected what book you want to advertise, it will say one product here and show you the book that you're advertising against. And then simply scroll down, and this is where you choose the different targeting that you want to do. So again, like I said at the start of this video, automatic targeting or manual targeting. These things below will change based on the type of targeting you want. As I showed you in this video, I'm only going to focus specifically on automatic targeting because this is the simplest and the easiest thing to understand. So we're going to start with automatic targeting. And then it comes to setting your default bid, as I showed you earlier on in the slides. So Amazon will recommend you a default bid range in which to go into. It's saying here, based on my book, I should have a default bid of between 25 pence and 41 pence with a recommended bid of 33 pence. Now, again, I would generally take this suggested bid with a little bit of a pinch of salt, and you can just try and test out different bids for yourself. So let's just say for the example of this book, I made £2 royalty per sale. So if I wanted 10 clicks before my ad becomes unprofitable, I'm going to put my default bid as 0.2 or 20p, and that's what my default bid is going to be. Then I have the options for negative keyword targeting and negative product targeting. This basically means you can put in any kind of keyword that you don't want your book to show up again. So let's just say for the example of this ad here, if I had a dinosaur coloring book for kids, specifically for the kids market, I do not want my ad to be showing up anytime someone types in dinosaur coloring book for adults. I'm not sure how many people would be searching this in, but every time someone searches in, we do not want our ad to be shown against that because our book is for kids. Anyone who sees our ad, clicks into it, and they're looking to buy it for themselves or for an adult, they're not going to buy ours, and we're just wasting loads of money. So this is where you can put in kind of keywords or products that you don't want to be targeting against. So your keywords go in there, and then your products go in here. Go ahead and put in the ASINs of the products that you don't want to, advertise against. And then you have your campaign bidding strategy. So exactly how this default bid behaves. Now, depending on which of these bidding strategies that you choose, it will change the recommended bid. So if I go for dynamic bids up and down, it will suggest that my default bid is 33p. But if I change this to dynamic bids down only, it would change this to 48p, because basically we're saying 48p or below for down only. Whereas if it's dynamic bids, we're giving that freedom to potentially bid more, and therefore Amazon recommend a lower default bid. But again, it's entirely up to you. If you're a beginner and you don't want to spend too much money, that's why I recommend going for dynamic bids down only, starting with a relatively low bid. And then if you're not getting any action, any impressions, any clicks on your ads, then you can slowly increase that bid over time. But don't worry about that now. I'll show you later on in this video exactly how to do that. So for this example, we're going to go for a 20p default bid, dynamic bids down only, which basically means we will never spend more than 20p per click. Anything that's 20p or below, we can compete for. And then you have the option for bid adjustments. Now, this is a little bit more advanced. So as a beginner, honestly, I wouldn't worry about these too much. And then you need to go ahead and name your campaign. So it's really, really important you're as organized as possible. Trust me, when you have 100+ campaigns, if you're not organized with your naming structure, it can become an absolute nightmare. So I recommend going with the type of ad. So I'm gone for auto, I've gone for down only as the bidding strategy, and I've gone for 0.2 as the bid. And then you can just put the name of the book. So let's go for dinosaur coloring. And that's basically how I name this. So whenever I look into my ads console, I know, okay, this is an auto ad with a 20p down only bid for my dinosaur coloring book. Rather than just having random kind of words and names, that just gets confusing. Please be organized. And then you can choose exactly what portfolio you want your book to go into. Again, wouldn't worry about this too much as a beginner, but it basically just means you can organize all of your book and your advertising into portfolios. Leave the start and end dates exactly as you want, unless you want to have an end date to your advertising campaign. Literally every single one of my ads don't have an end date. They just kind of run as long as I want them to. And then you can just turn them off manually whenever you want. And then you set a daily budget. Now, this is one thing where a lot of people have a lot of questions in terms of their daily budgets. This is basically the maximum you are prepared to spend on your advertising campaign every single day. So I just go for £12 here. That's what it's suggesting. Again, this does by no means mean you will spend £12 on your ad campaign. How much you spend is completely dictated by your default bid. If this bid was something like £2, I'm gonna win a lot of auctions. I'm gonna get a lot of clicks, but I'm gonna go to my budget quite quickly. So as you can see, once I increase my bid to £2, it therefore suggests a higher daily budget. So your daily budget is literally only there as a safety net. If you're being quite cautious with your default bid, you probably won't actually reach your daily budget. So if I have a default bid of 20p, it's very unlikely I'll get anywhere near this budget because 20p just isn't a very high bid. So it's entirely up to you how much daily budget you want to use. But just because you put £12 here, does not mean that every single day you will spend £12. Then once you're happy with that, all you'll want to do is go ahead and press launch campaign, and within 24 to 48 hours, your ad will be live on Amazon, and then you can start seeing all the data and how the ad is performing. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do all of that now. So up to this point, we have learned exactly what Amazon KDP ads are, how they work, why you need to use them, and we've actually created our first ad. Our ad is now live. We now need to understand exactly how our ad is performing and how we can monitor it. So within your Amazon ads console, you'll have the name of the campaign. So the example here would have been auto, down only 0.2 and dinosaur. So this is the specific campaign all of these metrics are referring to. You can see exactly how many impressions it got, how many clicks it got, the spend, the cost per click, the orders, the sales, the ACoS. Now these are generally the columns that I recommend that you select. In order to select these, all you want to do is go ahead and press this columns button, and it will basically give you a drop down of all of the different metrics that you can use. I recommend you always have these ones selected. And what I mean by this, if you just go into this columns button here and then go to customize columns, you can just select all the ones that you want to select. So you want to pause the video and just have the same ones that I've got selected here, then of course you can do that. These are the ones that I recommend you have selected. And the reasons I recommend you select these is because they tell you so much about what's actually going on with your ads. So I'm going to go through each of these ones individually and explain exactly what they mean and how you can monitor them. So I'm going to walk through each of these individual metrics through one by one. Now, the reason why this is blurred out again is because it's the name of the campaign. It will actually give away the name of one of my books. And again, unfortunately, people just go ahead and copy my books, which I don't want. So that's why this is blurred out. But I'm going to be focusing specifically on each of these individual metrics. So let's start with impressions. So impressions are basically how many times your ad has been seen. So for this example here, this ad was seen 25,846 times. So I essentially won 25,846 auctions in which my ad was then actually seen. Now, a big problem that a lot of people have when it comes to advertising on Amazon KDP is they'll say, okay, well, I've got my campaign set up, but why is my ad not spending any money? And you can use your impressions to understand exactly what's going on here, because if your impressions are really low, it basically means people aren't seeing your ad. And the reason that you're not seeing your ad is because you're not winning enough auctions, and you're not winning enough auctions because your bids aren't high enough. So therefore, if your ad isn't spending and your impressions are super low, just go ahead and increase your default bid, and you should start to see your impressions slowly increase. Now, you're probably watching this thinking, Sam, what's a good number of impressions every single day? Unfortunately, there is no set answer. It depends on way too many variables, what your default bid is, how popular the niches that you're searching in, because really popular niches are naturally going to get a lot more searches per day. So there's no kind of set rule of what's a good number of impressions. You will generally over time get a feel for yourself and your books, just what a good number of impressions is. If you increase your default bid, your impressions will increase. So just do that until you're happy with the number of impressions that you're getting. Now, that's the first reason why your ad might not be spending, is just because your default bid is not high enough. But there is a possible situation where your bid is high enough, you're getting a lot of impressions, but it's still not spending any money. And if this is the case, this is because you're winning bids, your book is being shown to people, but people just aren't interested. So this is definitely more of a common cause with manual ads. Maybe you're targeting a keyword that actually isn't that related to your book, and therefore people are seeing it, but because it's not related to what they're actually searching in, they're not going to click it. So with Amazon auto ads, you're very unlikely to have this situation. It's mainly going to be this one, but I just wanted to include this in case any of you are using manual ads and you're coming across this issue too. So that's impressions. Now let's move on to clicks. Very straightforward. How many times your ad has been clicked. So in this example here, it was seen 25,846 times, and it was clicked 375 times. And this will allow you to understand if people actually want to buy your book. If I just go back to this example here, if your impressions are really high, but you're not spending any money, it means you're not spending any money because people aren't clicking into your ad. So in this example here, if I had 25,846 impressions, but 0 clicks, no one out of 25,000 people have clicked into my ad. So there's definitely something wrong with my book and where it's being placed, because people just aren't interested. So this is what I mean by if your clicks are really low, then you need to look at your impressions to understand what's going on. So by this, I mean, if your impressions are high and your clicks are low, it basically means people aren't interested in your book. But if your clicks are really low and your impressions are also really low, the reason why your clicks are low is because people just simply aren't seeing it, i.e. don't have an impression, and therefore, again, you need to increase your default bid. Now, I appreciate for a beginner, some of this stuff might be a little bit complicated at first, but trust me, it's actually quite straightforward, which is why I recommend watching this section specifically through a couple of times and just get really familiar with exactly the things that I'm talking about. And on the flip side of this example here, if your clicks are really high, but there are no sales, then it means people are seeing your ad, they're clicking into it, but they're therefore not buying it. And this is a problem with your book itself, because people, your book is probably the right match for a certain person. They've clicked into it, but for whatever reason, they've decided not to buy it. Now, and if this is quite a common occurrence, there's definitely an issue with your book. So I'd go into your book listing, improve its cover, improve just the overall listing altogether, and make it a much more appealing proposition to stop people going into your book and then clicking off into somebody else's. Now, again, as a beginner, don't worry too much about this kind of level of depth. Initially, this will kind of come naturally over time as you expose yourself to Amazon ads a bit more, but I just want to include it in here because it is really important. Now, the next metric to cover is spend, but it's actually a very, very straightforward one, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this. This basically means how much you have spent in your ad. So for this example, we had 25,846 people see it, 375 people clicked it, and it means we spent £140 and 5 pence. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of depth on spend because it's quite straightforward, but what is important here too is cost per click, and this helps you understand that spend number a bit better. Because cost per click essentially helps you understand the average spend per click. So if I look at this number here, I had 25,846 impressions, 375 people of this number clicked, and I spent £140 and 5 pence, which means on average, I paid 37 pence per click. 37 pence times 375 is 140.05. So spend is quite an obvious and quite an easy metric to understand. Cost per click is a really interesting one because it allows you to see exactly how much you're spending for someone to click into your ad. And in this example, my cost per click was 37 pence. And I will also show you how your default bid is behaving. So for this example here, just please ignore these numbers at the top and just look at the numbers that I'm talking about down here. Let's just say you set up an ad campaign with a default bid of 20p with the down-only bidding strategy. Let's just say over time, your cost per click came back at 19 pence. So it's really pushing the upper bounds of that default bid. This basically would tell me that you're winning a lot of bids, but you're winning a lot of bids right at the top. So you could actually probably get away with bidding a little bit more money, maybe increasing this to 25p, and your cost per click will probably increase because you're now telling your ad, okay, I'm happy to spend a little bit more money per click, but you should hopefully start getting a lot more clicks and therefore a lot more sales. So it's really important to look at your cost per click because it will basically show you if you need to increase your default bid a lot. If this cost per click with a default bid of 20p was something like 5 pence or 10 pence, this basically tells you that you're winning so many bids for way less than your default bid, and therefore you don't need to increase it. The next two metrics are pretty straightforward, orders and also sales. So orders basically of these 375 people who clicked, how many orders did you get? And of all these 114 orders, what was your total sales number? Now the sales number is a sales number, not a royalties number. So I didn't make £817.83. That's the sale price of my book. So let's just say my book was £6.99. This sales number would basically be £6.99 times by the number of orders. I can't exactly remember in this example how much it cost, but this is a sales number. Just because you spent £140 doesn't mean you personally have got 817, because remember, you take a royalty cut of your sale price. Now you're probably thinking, how on earth do I calculate exactly how much I've taken back, or if my ad is even profitable, if it's not going to show me the royalty amount? And that is where this ACOS comes in. So ACOS stands for advertising cost of sale, and it's calculated by taking the spend of your ad, so 140.05, and dividing it by the sales number, timesing by 100. And it basically just means, of this £817 worth of sales, what percentage of this amount did we spend on the ads? So for example here, if we got £817 worth of sales and we spent £140, £140 is 17.12% of this 817 sales number. Now don't get too bogged down into the specifics of exactly how this is calculated. Basically what you want to just use this ACOS number is it's the easiest way to establish the profitability of your book. So it basically means that rather than going in and manually having to do all the maths and remembering what royalty you got per book and then timesing that by the number of orders and that's how much money you've actually made, ACOS allows you to understand this literally in a couple of seconds just by looking at this number. So the first thing you want to do to actually understand your ACOS is to calculate your break-even ACOS. So basically the number that this ACOS shows where you're actually breaking even. And the best way to do this is to take your book royalty and divide it by your book sale price. So let's just say I listed a book for £6.99 on Amazon, and every single time that book sold, I made £2.49 back in royalties. I would take that book royalty of £2.49, divide that by my book sale price of £6.99, giving me a break-even ACOS of 35.6%. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this now scratching their heads, being really confused at the maths. Again, this looks a lot more complicated than it is. You just need to look and do the maths. Book royalty divided by sale price. This is your break-even ACOS. And then if your ACOS in any of your ad campaigns is below this number, then you are profitable. So in this example here, my ACOS is 17.12%. So it's a really low ACOS, which means it's a very profitable ad campaign. So I can look at this straight away, and because I know my break-even ACOS is 35.6%, as long as this number is below 35.6%, this ad is profitable. If this ACOS was putting through at something like 50%, I would know, okay, because that's higher than my break-even ACOS, I am losing more money than this ad is actually gaining me. So that's how you calculate break-even ACOS. Again, these kind of metrics can be a little bit confusing, especially if you're a beginner. So I recommend going through and watching this specific section a couple of times until you're fully aware of exactly what is going on. But I promise you, it's a lot more straightforward to understand than it might seem at first glance. And this is also taken from that KDP Ads Mastery course that I mentioned a second ago. Feel free to screenshot, save this if you want to. And this basically gives you a little bit more information about all these different ad metrics and how they interact. Now, don't, again, get too overwhelmed by all of this, especially if you're a beginner. But if you do want to know, I'll just walk you through this very quickly. But essentially, it shows how all of these different metrics interact. Now, I've touched on a couple of them here. So impressions, how many times your ad was seen. Clicks, how many times of those 1,000 people here clicked into your ad. So if you had 20 clicks from 1,000 impressions, that will give you what's known as a click-through rate of 2%, which basically means of these 1,000 people, 2% of people actually clicked, because 20 is 2% of 1,000. If you then had 20 clicks and you spent £15, that's where your cost per click that I mentioned earlier is calculated from. So if you had 20 clicks and your spend was £15, you would have a cost per click of 75p, because 75p times 20 is £15. And then finally, you have the ACOS. So if I spent £15 and I got £100 worth of sales, this would give me an ACOS of 15%, because 15 is obviously 15% of 100. So that's exactly how these metrics work. Now, again, this might be quite a lot of information to take in as a beginner, but I did want to include it because it is really important to ultimately eventually get to the point where you do understand these metrics. I could keep everything extremely top level and extremely simple, but those aren't the things that are actually really going to make the difference with your ads. This is the kind of stuff that's really going to make a difference. So that is everything you need to know to really start seeing some progress and some success with your Amazon KDP ads, especially if you're a beginner. But if you want to take this one step further and learn absolutely everything to know about Amazon KDP ads, we haven't even touched on anything to do with manual ads. We've hardly really touched about Amazon optimization and really how to scale and increase the profitability of your ads, because all of that stuff would just be way too overwhelming as a beginner. But if you get to the stage where you understand the things that I've mentioned in this video and you really want to take your ads to the next level, then you can check out my KDP Ads Mastery course, which I will leave linked down below in the description. And of course, if you have any questions about anything that I've covered in this video, then please do let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll be more than happy to help answer as many of those as possible.